Hey guys, welcome to my fight night, Evloev versus Murphy full card breakdown. Bit of a heads up, I don't know what the hell is happening with my PC right now, which unfortunately seems to be happening on a more regular basis. I think this should hold up though. We'll see how things go. If things get too problematic, I might have to restart the stream or something at some point. I think I also have to... Okay. There we go. Okay. Now I can see stuff. Hello, guys. Alright, this stream might also be on the slightly faster side, but we'll see how things go. How long until fight breakdowns? Usually that starts around 15 minutes after we start the stream. I'm going to start with the last week's breakdown as we've been doing. Oracle, how do you think Jakub accept RDR as an offering for Nathaniel Wood 30 to 21? I have no idea. Alright, we'll start with the last week's breakdown. I'll answer a few questions and we'll get into things. So, Piero Rodriguez versus Sam Hughes. I only skimmed through the first two fights because I actually kind of overslept and napped going into this event for the first time in a while. But yeah, it just seemed like Piero Rodriguez was just the cleaner striker. I mean, pretty much what I was saying in the breakdown. She's just the slightly cleaner fighter. And Sam Hughes kind of relies on breaking people with pace. So this was a technical fight. It was always going to be Piero Rodriguez. Hedger Souza versus Lon Nucerda. It was a quote-unquote good performance from Hedger Souza, I guess. I really would have liked to see him pursue the finish a bit more on a very finishable guy in Lon Nucerda. But yeah, Souza is still technically very good. We'll see what happens going forwards with him. I just feel like we need to see a little bit more than that because it wasn't really enough to overly impress me, to say the least. Bia Mesquita versus Monster Rodon. Mesquita is definitely the real deal, right? Even her striking is getting better. Hurting Rondon on the feet before getting her down basically just showed she has everything in her game in some capacity now. Obviously, I'm sure the top girls in the weight class could still pose some problems, but until she gets into top 7, she's probably just going to choke everyone out in the first round. So definitely refreshing to have in this division because this division kind of sucks. Moving on to Anders versus Tavares. Yeah, this was just two guys who are very chinny and old, trying to see who was slightly less at the end of their career. And yeah, Anders just hits a lot harder, and the constant pressure was just a good idea for him because Tavares is one of those guys who needs to be technical, and it's hard to be technical when someone's constantly running at you and just slamming you against the fence. So yeah, Anders got it done. I believe he retired after also, right? So best of luck to him in retirement and all of that. Fun fight overall, although it was of course not the most impactful on the future of the division. Manuel Souza versus Balaji Oki. So this was the first prediction I technically got wrong on the card. I picked Oki. I think you guys kind of saw why I picked Oki though. Souza's not a good fighter. Oki is 100% primed to just throw fights by being stupid and gassing out, so I am by no means surprised that he lost. But Souza is just a full load up overhand and spam hook merchant. He has nothing else. He has basically no setups. His cardio is all right, I guess. He's has a knack for finishing guys late sometimes. But generally speaking, it's as soon as he fights a guy who's not stupid and can hit hard, he's going to get flatlines because he just has nothing skill-wise. Manuel Souza versus Rufi rematch. Who wins? Oh, Rufi will kill him in round 1. It's not even going to be close. Elijah Smith versus Su Young Yu. Smith impressed me. I was expecting him to win by decision, but yeah, getting taken down a lot early was I mean, not what you would have wanted to see, but he was a good wrestler, to be fair. But the fact that he was able to find the kill shot that easily on the feet when he was able to keep it there, and of course he was able to escape positions and get back to distance multiple times in round 1, yeah, that is what you want to see. And he's definitely been working on his accuracy, his power, and so on. So very good performance from Smith, and he's definitely a prospect in this division. Petrino versus Aswell. A lot of people seemingly liked that fight. I don't know if I just despise heavyweight. I thought it was a really bad fight. I felt like both of them showed that they kind of suck. Aswell basically just has nothing except trading in the pocket. And Petrino was not able to secure a takedown. Credit to Aswell, right? If a fighter does make progress, regardless of how skilled or not I think they are, I will give them credit for that. Aswell's takedown defense exponentially improved for this fight. Like, the fact that Petrino didn't get a single takedown when, like, a few years ago, straight up cans were getting full mounts on Aswell, yeah, that's a lot of progress. However, his striking is not very good. It's just spam stuff in the pocket, kind of roll with shots and hope it's enough. He had no clue what to do against a jab. Like, a simple jab is all it took for Petrino to win this fight. So that is what it is. How high do you think Smith can go? I mean, he has a lot of time, so even though there's nothing about him that makes me think he'll be a champ, I think he could be like top 6, 7-ish at some point. How do you feel about John Silva probably getting a title shot? I mean, he's the best in the division, so I'm fine with it. Do you think Zahabi's boxing will be a problem for Sean? Honestly, not really. I mean, there's a chance, but I don't think so. Petrino keeps calling out Walter. Walter mauls him, right? I mean, if Walter can't secure a takedown, he's in trouble. But I'd still probably lean towards Walter, yeah. Alright. Mutterbek Oralby versus Chris Kurtis. I was not the biggest fan of this performance. Like, it was technically dominant from Oralby, but you only get 19 takedowns if people are getting up 16 times. Like, obviously, you're not necessarily going to be able to hold a single takedown the entire round, but the control was not spectacular. The damage was... I mean, he had that moment, I think, in round 2 where he landed some shots, but no real submission attempts. It's like, that's a fight that you were set up to kind of hunt for a finish and try to propel yourself into the rankings from there. So, Oralby is good, don't get me wrong. I just was not a fan of that performance. Charles Johnson versus Bruno Silva. So, I bet on Charles Johnson. I picked Charles Johnson. I very heavily felt that Bruno Silva won. I had Bruno Silva winning at 29-28. I would not have argued with the 30-27 as well. I didn't think there was really any way you could give Charles Johnson 2 rounds. I didn't think he won round 1, and I didn't think he won round 3. Round 2, you could definitely give to him. Like, round 3, he had like 10 seconds, I guess, sort of near the end of success, but it doesn't change the fact that he was getting dominated for like the other 4 minutes and 50 seconds of that round. It's like, it felt like the judges were scoring like pitter-patter round kicks and such that did nothing, and I honestly don't know how they came to this conclusion. But it really seems like getting knocked out by Alex Perez did make Charles Johnson very tentative here. He did not want to open up with his hands at all, and Bruno Silva was just able to pressure pretty much without any consequences whatsoever. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about that, but strange judging result and strange outcome overall. Charles Johnson had a broken foot. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter if you have a broken foot or not. You should still be punching. If you're kicking more with a broken foot, that doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, okay, then actually box more. That doesn't mean that you should be kicking more with a broken foot. Like, what are we doing? All right, anyways. Moving on to Ian Cutelaba versus Omar Sy. So, I think in hindsight, right, we all kind of saw the writing on the wall here. Omar Sy is one of those guys who's just ridiculously talented, but has zero toughness and determination or pretty much anything that makes someone an actually capable fighter. He is a very talented athlete. He just has zero will to actually fight. So if he cannot get you down easily and win that way, or just pick at you from range with any with no adversity, essentially, I mean, I guess he's just going to give up, because that's essentially what he did here. Like, he basically fed Cutelaba the guillotine. A lot of people are asking me after this fight if I thought it was rigged because of how ridiculous it looked. I don't think it was rigged. I think the moment that Omar Sy starts facing adversity, he just turns his mind off. So I don't even know what to say. Like, I feel like you have to cut him. I know he only lost one in a row here technically, but I genuinely feel like you have to cut him because this is not a fighter you want in the UFC. Zero grade. Yeah, exactly. It's an embarrassing performance. I mean, good on Cutelaba, of course. Like, he made it happen, right? He was winning pretty much the entirety of the fight. But Omar Sy is not someone who should be in the UFC. Cutelaba, yeah, I think you have to give him a little bit of a step up now. He's proven a few fights in a row now that he's not the fighter he was. He is more capable. I still don't think he could go particularly far, but he deserves a shot at least. Calling him the fighter is a stretch. Yeah, I agree. He's not a fighter. He's just an athlete that decided to try to fight. All right, Marwan Rahiki versus Harry Hardwick. So a lot of people saw this fight and are like, oh, Rahiki's going to be a problem for people. He's a massive prospect. Honestly, to be blunt, what I saw from this fight was bad and worse. Rahiki has no concept of defense. He just kind of spams overhands and hooks and wild kicks. And Hardwick has no concept of anything for the most part. So Rahiki was just getting blasted by anything Hardwick threw, and Hardwick was getting blasted by anything Rahiki threw, and it was a fun fight because of that. But I don't think it was particularly skillful, to say the least. So I don't mind fights like this on a card, to be clear. Like, it was fun. I just don't agree with the people who are saying, like, oh, Rahiki's going to be a problem. Like, he has time to improve, so maybe in the future. As he is right now, no. Anyone who has like a little bit of power and a little bit of skill is going to absolutely starch him. All right, moving on to Jose Delgado versus André Fili. Did Fili not drop Delgado in round 1? He could have just rocked him, but for some reason I thought he dropped him. But this is not showing a knockdown. I don't know. Okay. Anyways, it was a okay performance from Delgado. I don't think it was the step up that I was expecting after he took his first loss in a very long time. Delgado still has the issue that he really just spams hooks in the pocket while being the usually longer fighter. And I know against Fili, they were technically had the same height and length. But when you are a slower power puncher, like Delgado is like a lengthy but slower power puncher, you can't be chaining together hooks in the pocket like that, because someone who's faster than you is just going to put a counter in your face like Fili did and hurt you. So that really needs to just be absolutely killed from his toolkit. And other than that, he was having trouble tracking down Fili. And not that Fili is terrible, but I don't know, like Brito knocked out Fili. It's just, it was, Delgado had good moments where he was definitely like putting the pace on Fili and lighting him up to the point I thought it was going to be a finish, but Fili was able to survive. But yeah, I don't know. I just was not impressed with what Delgado did here. And I feel like they're probably going to keep him at a lower level for a while after seeing this, because he still has raw potential for sure, but just not a good performance. Right, moving on to Jillian Robertson versus Amanda Lemos. I mean, this was not a fun fight by any means. Lemos did better and did well in round 1. Couldn't really stuff the takedowns in round 2 or 3. There's honestly an argument that Lemos won round 3 as well. I'm not going to press it, to say the least. I don't think it even matters either way. But it was an uninspiring performance from both of them. I felt like Robertson should have really pushed for the finish more heavily. And the fact that she was struggling to get control from certain positions, like, does not bode well as she fights better jiu-jitsu practitioners, because Lemos is one of the few people in UFC history to get subbed by a standing arm triangle. Like, she's really not someone you want to not be subbing if you get her on the ground. But anyways, moving on to Vachejos versus Emmett. I don't know what to take from this fight because Emmett looks so terrible. Like, if Emmett was looking good or looking fine and then Vachejos started picking him apart, I'd be like, okay, that's great. But Emmett just did nothing except run away. So I think Vachejos, like, I mean, still, he did the best he could, not trying to disparage him by any means. I just don't know if we learn anything from that performance because Emmett looked so terrible. So I want like another fight kind of at this level for Vachejos because I do want to see where he's at before he really gets pushed. I know they probably will just push him now and have him fight someone at the top of the rankings, but like he's so young, they have time, and he could be such a star that I feel like they should just wait like another year or so before they push him. Jean versus Vachejos 2 in a few years will be sick. Yeah, I agree. Emmett said he spent his entire 2-year layoff training his power only, and it's maybe the dumbest thing I've ever heard a fighter say. I didn't see that, but yeah, that would be absolutely absurd if that's what he did. The power puncher decided to spend 2 years training power. Okay. Yeah, that's impressively stupid. I will say that. All right. Anyways, I will answer a few questions as I set up to do this week's analysis. Bro tried to be TJ or something, did all that movement for nothing. Yeah, that I don't know what he was doing. Like, yeah, he was gonna lose either way, but at least spam a few overhands and pretend to try before you get knocked out. Like, come on. What's the hardest fight for Jean at 145 besides Volk? You know, in a really weird way, maybe Murphy. I still think he'd beat Murphy, to be clear. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. I don't think someone like Evloev would be much an issue for him, to be honest. I do think Vachejos probably would actually be, but I feel like it's also a little early to say that. Probably a grappler. I don't think so, because when all he has to focus on is the grappling, he does a very good job at it. He only really has problems when he has to focus on many things at the same time, and is slower to adapt because of that. But anyways, we will get into this week's breakdown. Alright, starting with Melissa Mullins versus Luana Carolina. So, Mullins is a grappler, and was technically a BJJ champ, though I don't really know how, to be honest. She generally wants to get the fight to the ground, but she doesn't have spectacular takedowns. She kind of has to like push you to the fence, then drag you down from there. On the feet, she is going to pressure heavily with combinations to try to get you to the fence. She does have throws and body lock takedowns, but like the single and double legs are just really not there. Her defense is kind of just reliant on pressure. She's not actually going to defend otherwise. On the ground, despite her background, she just uses ground and pound. She doesn't really threaten submissions. So I don't know why, but yeah, I mean, she's effectively just a ground and pound fighter. Carolina is more of a movement-oriented fighter. She generally just wants to float around on the outside and pick at you slowly over 3 rounds. She doesn't really throw many combinations. She mainly just throws 1 or 2 shots at a time. She switches stances, tries to create angles constantly to give you different looks, keeps her hands down, so it's completely her defense is completely reliant on movement. But to be fair, she does a decent job at that, so she doesn't tend to get caught clean a lot. She is a little bit susceptible to longer combinations because her movement is like for 1 to 2 shots, and then if you keep pressuring, you tend to just land after that. This is a little bit of a weird fight to predict because Carolina did get ragdolled in her last fight, but Mullins also just decided not to grapple until she was almost knocked out in her last fight. I do feel like Luana Carolina is at least improving a little bit, so I am going to go with Carolina by decision, but it's closer to a coin flip fight. This is one of those just not the highest level WMMA. Who knows what's going to happen? All right, moving on to Chanel Dyer versus Ravena Oliveira. So Dyer is effectively a Muay Thai striker who's just dependent fully on her kicks. She doesn't really have punches in any real capacity. She's typically just going to land a few jabs with her hands and then otherwise just blast kicks repetitively. She's extremely tall for her division, so she will use body knees to try to drain her opponent a little bit. She is way too reliant on using height as a defense, so she can definitely get clipped by punches fairly easily as long as you are closing the distance as you throw. She does have reasonable takedown defense from what we've seen, but it's never actually been heavily tested realistically. Oliveira is a rare finish-heavy WMMA fighter. She has no decision wins. Almost all of her wins come by TKO. Mainly, she's basically just going to spam wild hooks and overhands. There's no real setup or movement, but she will throw to knock you out. She does throw in takedowns. They're kind of just sporadic. There's no real trends to when she will attempt a takedown or not. On the ground, she generally will try to pass guard and look for a submission from there. She doesn't really have a concept of defense. She will just get hit and try to use that opportunity to knock you out. That is basically all there is. I am surprised that Dyer is such a massive favorite, even though I knew she was going to be a favorite. Like 4.5 to 1 for someone who we've only seen lose to mediocre comp seems a little bit ridiculous. I know it's supposed to be a statement of how bad people think Oliveira is, but she's at least dangerous, and we've seen Dyer get clipped many times recently. To be clear, I am still going to pick Dyer by TKO. I just don't get the odds here. I do think that we are going to get a finish on either side, and it is more likely to come from the Dyer side, maybe via like knees to the body and such in round 3 after Oliveira has slowed down a lot. But yeah, I mean, another closer fight that I am surprised people are very comfortable in picking. Moving on to Shamrock versus Abdul Karim Al-Selwady. So, Shamrock is a submission-oriented grappler. On the feet, he is very dependent on kicks. He's a southpaw, so he tends to throw inside calf kicks and head kicks mainly. Most of his punches are jabs. Sometimes he does throw singular crosses, very few combinations though. He shoots mainly on double legs, but he will vary the type of finish to the takedown if he needs to. His best wrestling success is usually with chaining. He usually doesn't get the first takedown, he will just keep going until he does eventually get it. On the ground, he's just looking to get to the back and then wrap up a choke from there. Otherwise, he doesn't have like the greatest ground and pound in all honesty. His takedown defense is quite solid actually, but his striking defense is quite literally non-existent. I don't even know what he was doing against Evloev, but it wasn't blocking or defending anything, I will say that. Al-Selwady is more of a movement-oriented, well-rounded fighter. On the feet, he will stay on the outside. He'll constantly switch stances to give you different looks. Then he'll throw a lot of calf kicks and throw it from different angles from the different stances and such as well. He throws in spinning back kicks and a variety of different kicks, like basically any kick you could think of in all honesty. His punches are mainly one at a time. It's a lot of overhands when his opponent enters the pocket. His wrestling is primarily on double leg shots, but he will also work a lot in the clinch if he needs to. Generally, the best way to catch him is right after he throws a kick, because he enters and commits to it like super hard when he's throwing a calf kick, and then kind of exits slowly and in a straight line, so he's super vulnerable in that moment, even if his general movement is pretty good otherwise. Another tough fight to call because Al-Selwady's been out for years now, but he definitely can be taken down and put into bad positions. His injuries are also definitely concerning. You never know how a fighter looks coming back from that. Shem also has the home field advantage and such, and fought not too long ago. Getting full mount on Evloev was also definitely an accomplishment. So I do think that Shem is probably going to get a takedown and be able to work his way to the back here. So I'm going to say Shem probably gets a submission win here. All right, moving on to Louis Sutherland versus Brendo Peričić. So Sutherland is more of a striker than a grappler for sure, but he will definitely throw in wrestling in fights where he feels like it will be useful. His kicks are surprisingly good for a heavyweight. He basically broke Walter's leg with like 3 calf kicks, which is pretty crazy in all honesty. Sometimes he does bring the kicks higher later in combinations in fights. He tends to start with the calf kicks to set it up, and then as you start like anticipating it, he'll bring it up. He does have an okay jab. It's nothing special, but it is functional. When he gets on the inside, his offense is mainly just spamming hooks. Sometimes he mixes the hook exchanges with like the hook spam into a takedown attempt instead of just only sticking with hooks. One thing I will also say about Sutherland is he was very likely juicing on the regional scene, looking at how much his physique melted when he got to the UFC. So, I mean, take that as you will. I don't know. Peričić is a pure kickboxer who transitioned to MMA. He has a very striking-focused base, of course, because of his kickboxing background, but he is willing to shoot takedowns pretty regularly, unlike most kickboxers. He is overall a relatively technical striker, but he doesn't really transfer his weight perfectly while punching. So sometimes it looks like he's throwing bombs, but it's just not knocking out people because he's not properly putting his weight into it. It is very strange to watch at times. His takedowns are usually starting with double legs. The more, or how should I put this? The issue I have with his grappling is not the fact that he adds it in, it's when he adds it in. For some reason, he will start lighting up someone on the feet and then feel the incessant need to start clinching and work towards a takedown while his opponent is badly rocked. And he likes doing this on a regular basis, which I find very annoying. His defense revolves on just fading backwards, so he definitely could get caught by combinations or countered as he's throwing, because when he starts throwing, he just kind of keeps throwing until he decides to clinch or just his opponent counters. I am going to say Brendo Peričić wins by TKO. I think pretty much everyone is picking that, in all honesty. But I do feel like this could be a little bit of a weirder fight than people are expecting. I don't trust Peričić from what we've seen. We'll see how he does here, if he's improved at all. I don't know. We have a lot of very questionable low-level fights on this card. This is another one of them. Maybe Peričić will be something in the future. I just definitely need to see more of him before I could say that. All right, Montas, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, sorry, versus and it's Antonio Trócoli. So Montas is just like a straight-up berserker kickboxer. He'll start with a few jabs on the outside, but then he'll get impatient very quickly and just try to get into a firefight immediately. He will enter the pocket while punching. He'll just usually start with a 1-2, get his head off the center line, and then just start spamming hooks while moving his head. Despite the fact that he is a lifelong striker, he also did display some wrestling and grappling on the Contender Series. It's hard to say the limits of it because we haven't seen it very tested, but it does seem like his wrestling is explosive and he does have some ability on the ground. His power is pretty ridiculous. If he lands clean once, his opponents just seem to go straight unconscious. It's very interesting to watch. Because he's so aggressive, he is definitely predictable and open when he does enter the pocket, though. I feel like if we see someone knock him out, it's probably going to come via an elbow. Because of how he moves his head when he enters, he would kind of move into a rear elbow that someone tried to just throw right as he entered. Trócoli is, I don't even know how to analyze him because he hasn't done anything useful, in his entire career. I guess you could say he's kind of well-rounded. He stands very tall and throws right hands and calf kicks sometimes. Technically speaking, I think his base is supposed to be grappling, but he sucks at takedowns, so it doesn't happen. So yeah, Montas is going to knock him out in round 1, so nothing more to say there. I am actually excited to see Montas debut because he brings technique into a very erratic style and a very entertaining style. So yeah, I mean, this is a fight to give Montas a highlight, and I'm actually all for it because I do want to see him get some hype. Trócoli is better at poker than MMA. I mean, can't be worse at it, so I would hope he is. All right, moving on to Mario Pinto versus Felipe Franco. So Pinto is a very surprisingly calm and well-rounded fighter for heavyweight. It's a very strange phenotype for the heavyweight division. He generally takes his time on the feet and will pick at you from range with jabs and calf kicks. Once he gets his timing, he'll start trying to counter with left hooks and land overhands as you're moving backwards. He used to be very prone to getting swarmed because of how patient he was, but he seems to be trying to fix this by adding wrestling into his game and using it whenever his opponents get overly aggressive. On the ground, he will take his time to establish dominant position, then he'll start trying to look to end the fight from there with submissions, ground and pound, whatever he needs to do. I honestly still don't love his defense on the feet because he's so static and doesn't have the best high guard. He just kind of puts his arms up there, but it's functional for now at the level he's at. Franco is mainly a grappler, but he does definitely have some striking. He's looking to get to legs in basically any way possible and then just vary how he finishes the takedowns until it is down. On the ground, he'll mainly work towards subs. lands a little bit of ground and pounds, but it's not really meant to deal damage. It's meant to annoy you. He isn't overly technically sound while transitioning on the ground, though, so he does tend to give up like hip pressure, which leads to his opponents being able to scramble out and escape relatively easily. On the feet, he is very pressure heavy and will throw combinations constantly. He's not terrible, but not spectacular. The biggest issue for him is he has about 7 minutes of cardio before he just keels over and dies in the octagon. So the only chance here that Franco has is a round 1 finish. Pinto obviously should win this. I don't think it's going to be as early as people think. I think this is probably going to be like a mid to late round 2 Pinto TKO. So I am taking Pinto by TKO, but I am a little surprised that everyone's this confident in Pinto. I just feel like we haven't seen anything that impressive yet out of him, but I do get that no one has any faith in Franco, and I get why. So we'll see how this one goes. All right, moving on to an actually fun one. Nathaniel Wood versus Losene Keita. I think I just butchered the name, but Keita? I don't know how to say it, to be honest. Anyways, starting with Wood. Wood is technically well-rounded, but he definitely prefers to be striking. On the outside, he will poke with jabs and calf kicks. Depending on his opponent, sometimes he will blitz into the pocket with combinations to close distance, and against others, he'll more so wait to counter their attacks. Generally speaking, the right straight is his best weapon. He defends with a high guard that he definitely does try to move to block with in an educated manner, so I do like his high guard more than I do for other fighters. His wrestling is mainly just blast double legs. He definitely does have a submission game, but against higher level opponents, he's mainly just using control and ground and pound if he gets it down. He can struggle to close the distance against some of his longer opponents, and sometimes he can freeze up a little bit against flurries if you've given him enough to think about, so that definitely can be a problem for him. Keita is a power-oriented striker. He throws pretty much everything with full knockout intent. He tends to focus on power right hands where he just kind of slings it, but he will also dig the left hook to the body a lot as well. Sometimes he will throw multiple hooks in combination when he feels that he has his timing. His pocket boxing is not the best defensively. He has no guard, he has no slipping, he's just kind of spamming hooks. He does have distance management on the feet though, so it does kind of help to negate the threat, but when he is throwing, he's definitely vulnerable. He has shown a solid chin so far, but not against the... I mean, there's been no high level of competition to test it against. Let's just say that. His takedown defense has held up. He has a really good sprawl. I don't think Wood is going to have that much wrestling success unless it's later in the fight. Let's just put it that way. I am going to lean towards Nathaniel Wood here as an underdog because Keita loves to throw the right hand to the body as hard as possible without any setup. And that really bothers me because he gets very predictable with it, and he loves to drop his left hands and like vastly overcommit to it when he does it as well. So, assuming that Wood's camp is watching any tape whatsoever, all I would tell him to do is, okay, let's just relax, circle a little bit, wait for the right hand, get the timing, and then the next time he throws the right hand to the body, just blast a right hand counter, and you're going to probably drop him. So I think that as long as Wood is approaching this with any intelligence and not just brawling with him, he should be the far more technical fighter, and Keita has a lot of defensive holes that probably will cost him at this level. Obviously, Keita has a power upside here. If he lands anything clean on Wood, it is definitely going to hurt him, if not finish him. But yeah, I have to pick Wood decision here just as the better overall fighter. Having no defense in the pocket against a pocket boxer isn't a good look. Yeah, agreed. All right. Moving on to the last fight of the prelims, Mason Jones versus Axel Sola. So, Jones is theoretically a well-rounded fighter who relies on his grappling to be the difference maker. He throws a lot of kicks from the outside to a variety of targets and will just pump the jab constantly. He enters with long combinations and keeps forward pressure while like trying to mix up his techniques very consistently. And when I say mix up techniques, like he will throw spinning stuff into there, he will just throw question mark kicks, like like very mixed techniques. He shoots mainly on double legs, but he tends to have the best success when he switches from the double leg to the body lock and then finishes it from there. He is the definition of slow twitch. So when he throws combinations, he definitely leaves openings between strikes because he is just so damn slow. He's kind of like a Chris Duncan, except honestly even slower. When he's on the back foot, he also really struggles. He just seems to not be able to put anything together there because he's reliant on pressure. You can definitely throw around his guard and clip him at times because of the speed, and his real goal in fights is to break his opponent. The pace is going to be continuous across the 3 rounds, so he will look for a finish later in fights, generally speaking. Axel Sola is a rangy striker who emphasizes a lot of his distance weapons. His best weapon by far is his jab. He will just constantly pump it out and bloody opponents up very quickly. He tends to move around on the outside and will only commit when he does have his reads. Depending on his opponent's stance, he'll either throw leg kicks or head kicks. He used to have an issue of trading too much in the pocket, despite the fact that he's extremely long for the weight class. But I haven't seen it in his recent fights, so getting dropped against Evloev's brother may have taught him like a lesson and just made him avoid that position. He throws the left straight much more recently after like getting his timing in fights, but he definitely is patient. He's not going to spam it. He's going to pick his spots very carefully. The tape of him on the ground in recent times is pretty limited. He has been training in Dagestan recently, which definitely makes sense for this camp, but take it as you will. I always say, like, you're not going to learn via osmosis, so I don't know how much one camp in Dagestan will necessarily train things. He does try to use his height advantage to look for knees in the clinch and stuff when the fight ends up there. He can struggle a little bit with combinations because of the fact that he uses his distance as his main defense. Now, I will be honest here. This fight kind of bothered me in terms of prediction because I have a very low opinion of Jones. I don't know if you guys, whoever was here for my speech on him last time, I just really don't think he's particularly good at anything. He was struggling against a very old Jeremy Stephens, and yes, I know he technically won that fight 30-27, but he got hurt by Stephens a few times in round 2, and even when he had Stephens on the ground, he couldn't submit him, or even get particularly close to submission. And, like, Stephens got submitted by Gamrot. So, he's not exactly the hardest person to submit in the world, especially at 155. So that just really was not... Jones has not been impressive to me at any point in his career, in all honesty. Sola, I feel like, has more potential, but at the same time, he's a lot more green in his career, and he's definitely not at his fully developed state, let's put it that way. I am ultimately going to pick Sola's trajectory and lean Sola winning by decision here, or potentially a late finish stemming from a body shot, but my official prediction is Sola by decision. I think Sola has the ability to be something in like 3 to 5 years. I don't think Mason Jones realistically will ever like be ranked or particularly close to the rankings or anything like that. So we'll see how Sola does here. If he's able to make this a relatively clean fight and look good, then he's definitely going to have a solid future in the sport. All right, for the main card, I will start putting up polls for this as well. So I'm going to get a poll live. All right, poll should be up. Is Sola an underdog? Yeah, he's a slight underdog. What good win does Sola have? Because I don't see any. I don't think either of them have any good wins, to be honest. Are we doing questions right now or not? I'll answer some during the polls, for sure. Campbell starting at 68%. Oh, 70%. I think this is too soon for Campbell. Interesting, fair. Alright, I'll close this in a few seconds, not going to drag it out too long. Thoughts on Edmund versus Brendan Allen and what it means for DDP's next fight? I think it means that they're going to do DDP versus Evloev. I do think Brendan Allen versus Edmund is kind of stupid, though. I don't know what like Edmund did to deserve a shot at Brendan Allen. It's very weird. All right, I'm going to end the poll here at 67% for Campbell. All right. So Campbell is a grappler who, technically speaking, has a Muay Thai background. He apparently has a ridiculous number of unofficial Muay Thai fights, but I don't know how much stock to put into that because, like, unofficial Muay Thai fights could be like you're fighting a random guy in a bar, pretty much. So let's just say that. He will blast kicks on the outside, though, to force you to engage pretty recklessly. When you do engage, he will just spam takedown attempts until he gets you down. If you get up, he's just going to chain wrestle into another takedown and continue this repetitively the entire fight. On the ground, he goes for heavy ground and pound, and then if a sub opens up, he will take it from there. On the feet, he can be a little susceptible in the pocket, but it's hard for opponents to really commit to entering the pocket because they know a takedown attempt will come if they do attempt to. Silva is a pressure and volume striker. He switches stances a lot and throws calf kicks on the outside. He enters with long combinations. Sometimes he starts with a double jab, but often it's just a lot of hooks while like moving his head. It's not what I would call hook spam because it's educated hook throwing, but he is definitely looping shot reliance. He does often keep his hands low, but he will raise them to block if he thinks something is coming. On the outside, he mostly defends by utilizing distance. He does throw in wrestling, but it's definitely not his primary game plan. He is generally quite durable and doesn't really slow down over 15. So I'm going to pick Campbell by decision here. And I think the way this fight will go is that Silva is going to have the issue of that he just can't enter the pocket like he normally does. Because Campbell is going to force him to. He's just going to keep blasting kicks until Silva enters. But then as soon as Silva commits to an actual combination, Campbell is going to shoot under that, try to get him down, probably get him down, get like 20, 30 seconds of control time, land a little bit of damage. Silva will get up and do okay, but probably just like lose every round in a slightly close fashion. So Campbell by decision. If he overperforms, then we'll see what happens from there. But I'm expecting this to be like a somewhat close fight where Campbell just kind of edges every single round. All right. Roman Dolidze versus CLD. We'll put up a poll for this and then answer a few questions as well. All right, poll is live. Was Silva not just a punching bag for Vachejos? I feel like people are overrating him. I wouldn't say it was a punching bag. I do think the fight was somewhat competitive. But Vachejos definitely clearly won, yes. Curtis Campbell fights like a mini Darren Till. I wouldn't really say that, to be honest, because Campbell doesn't really punch. Brennan's the type to get folded by Edmund in round 1. Maybe. We have 83% on CLD. Ingram versus Bruno Ferreira and Baku. Yeah. That should be fun, but I don't know about Bruno coming back so quickly after just getting flatlined. Believes they should have stayed in 205. Yeah, probably. What do you think gave Vachejos the little troubles in the Silva fight? I think just the pace. Danny Silva's able to maintain such a high pace, it's hard for guys to deal with. Does DDP have some of the most underrated striking ever? Maybe. I think people definitely disrespect it a lot for no reason. Like, it is pretty technical if you look at the intent behind it. I know it's atypical, but it's not like it's sloppy. Alright, I'll end the poll here. Alright, so CLD ends with 84% on our poll. So, starting with Dolidze. Dolidze is technically a grappler. For some reason, he rarely uses it, and typically just ends up brawling on the feet. If he is on the ground, he is extremely technical, though. He can outmaneuver pretty much anyone there, but he tends to not really find submission finishes in the UFC. On the feet, everything he throws is very hard, but it is also extremely slow. He emphasizes the lead hook. Sometimes he'll throw it paired with an overhand, He does throw out some calf kicks, but it's mainly just to hide his hands. When he does shoot, it tends to be a double leg. From there, he will try to pass and land damage. The lack of speed definitely leads to him getting hit a fair amount because he just cannot really move to defend in time. CLD has an extremely pretty style. He switches stances a lot. He chops kicks from the outside. He will use the stance switches to create angles and try to land from there. And he will do his best to mimic a Beyblade and just spin 24/7. That is the only thing about his game that kind of puts me off, because spinning is cool and nice when you do it intelligently. He just spins for the sake of spinning, though. He really does not like pressure. It stifles a lot of his offense, so he has a hard time dealing with it. He is also a little bit low fight IQ. He will kind of just clinch for 15 minutes straight sometimes for no reason whatsoever. I genuinely don't know why he does that when he does it, but it just happens. The dependence on movement opens him up to being kind of like outgunned with basic stuff sometimes, which is how he kind of just lost to Armin Petrosian. He was just looking for the massive spinning techniques and weird stuff, and Petrosian would just land like 2 or 3 basic strikes and then move, and then do the same thing again. But generally speaking, his power and his fluidity are very extreme for the weight class, and he is a very good fighter, and I am actually pretty high on him, despite the fact that a lot of the stuff I did say was negative here. So I am going to pick CLD by TKO. He does make me nervous by, like, he may just give his back randomly, but I don't think that Dolidze is fast enough to capitalize on that. And if Dolidze feels like the type of guy who's just going to get blasted by like a spinning elbow or something, because he's just not going to be able to move, and CLD is just going to like keep going for random stuff until he finds it. So CLD by TKO. TKO round 2 is probably the most likely in my opinion. Hopefully he gets a highlight. Otherwise, this fight is just kind of useless in all honesty. All right, moving on to Iwo Baraniewski versus Austen Lane. I will put up a poll, even though I don't even really think we won. What has happened? Okay. There we go. Poll is live. CLD needs a bit of refining, but if he gets that, I think it could be a huge problem. Yeah, I agree. Beyblade is the best base for MMA. Imagine playing up to a fight with versus Islam with one Drago. How good is Robocop? I mean, I don't have the highest opinion of Robocop, but he did beat CLD, to be fair, yeah. The Petrosian fight might have been the biggest fumble in his career. Valid. Don't forget, Robocop out-wrestled CLD. He technically did, but I don't think that fight was due to wrestling. I think it was due to CLD trying to spin his way out of pressure constantly, which doesn't really work. I think Roman can win by hugging. I just don't think he is fast enough to establish the clinch in a position that's really going to matter. Roman Dolidze hasn't been going for takedowns in recent fights. He hasn't been going for takedowns in basically his entire UFC career, but yes, I agree. I think very early in his career, maybe, but Dolidze sucks. I don't know why I picked him against Fluffy. Oh, same. I mean, on paper, he was a bad matchup against Fluffy. It's just, he's so slow that it ends up being ridiculous. Why don't you hate CLD? Is there a reason why I should? I don't know. I mean, he has a little low fight IQ, but besides that, he is fun to watch. If a single person picks Lane, ban them from the streams. I don't know who picked Lane, but someone did. Alright, I'll end the poll here. We have 95% for Iwo, which makes logical sense. Alright, so starting with Iwo. Iwo is mainly a striker. He's very right-hand dependent. He throws a lot of crosses and overhands. He has wrestling and judo. It's really hard to say what level it is, though, because we've only really seen it used against regional cans. He is very movement dependent for defense, so he can have issues if you do back him up to the fence. He has gotten clipped there a few times, but he is very durable, so he makes it work. Of course, we did see him get caught in the pocket as well against Ibo, but that also felt like it was kind of because he wanted to make a statement in his first fight and just fought the exact type of fight that like Aslan needed to have any type of success. Austen Lane is very big and athletic, but he's not very talented in any like domain of fighting, in all honesty. He has heavy hands, and if he can land something, it will cause a knockdown at the least. He's gotten more patient over time. He does tend to stay on the outside or throwing combinations. He does have wrestling, but it's mainly just trying to tackle you, basically. He does tend to get reckless at some points in the fight. Like sometimes he starts very technical in round 1, but then in round 2 he just starts spamming shots. And then once he does, he's very open to pretty much anything. Obviously, I'm picking Evo by TKO, like pretty much everyone else in the world. I don't know if Austen Lane is even going to make weight, because dude is ridiculously big. Like even for heavyweight, Lane is big. So I don't know how he's cutting for 205, and I feel like he's just going to get touched and die instantly. But to be fair, I mean, Evo is hittable, so if Lane lands, it could be a problem for him. But I hate to say this, I wouldn't be shocked if this fight got cancelled, because I could see Lane missing weight by like 10 pounds here, and everyone just being like, oh, well, that was obvious, and then we just lose a fight off the card for no reason. So hopefully the fight happens, but if not, I guess we all anticipated it, at the least. All right, moving on to Page versus Patterson. I'll put up a poll for this as well. All right, poll is live. People forgot Lane had Pinto knocked down in round 1. Yes, true. People forget Lane got slept by a top of row. True as well. What if Evo has no grappling, gets up? No, we know he has some grappling. Was it 2 left hooks from Evo that dropped Aswell in the UFC debut? I think the last knockdown was a right hand. I think it was a right overhand, but I could be wrong. Evo was considered for Judo Olympics. I'm pretty sure he definitely has grappling. Yeah, valid. Alright, we're starting with 52% for MVP. I hate Michael Page. Yeah, same. We'll get to that. Oracle, how much does your bias against MVP factor into this prediction? I will get to that as well. Your favorite fighter MVP, yes. I had like 8 units on Evo against Evo. Scariest fight of my life, valid. What makes you hate MVP seems chill? We'll get to that in a second. Alright, we're basically at a 50-50 here. Alright, I'm going to end the poll here. So for the people who are newer, as the people who have been here for a while are alluding to, MVP is up there with my most hated fighters of all time. I genuinely think he's just a terrible person and fighter. There are things we don't need to get into that some of you know that I don't think we're even allowed to talk about on YouTube. But even ignoring that part, the whole like holding on to subs after referee gets involved, stuff like excessive taunting, celebrating after like weird like taunting after the fight. Like you taunt during the fight, right? To some extent that's fine. Taunting after a fight, after you knocked out a can, is just kind of ridiculous in my opinion. He like claims that he's a karateka basically, but it's just he's the opposite of everything you'd want to represent in karate. It's very weird. So anyways, okay, moving on to the breakdown for this. Now that you guys know my bias, obviously I do my best to separate bias from predictions. Is there a potential that there is some spillover? Yeah, it's very possible when it is one of my most hated fighters. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Alright, so starting with MVP. So MVP is a karate-style striker who relies on explosive blitz entries. He's very movement-based. He will bounce in and out of range to control distance. His main attacks are blitz combinations. He'll blitz into a jab, an overhand, or an uppercut typically. He often jumps forwards before initiating his blitz attacks, which is how you can tell if it's coming. A lot of people try to... The reason why they can't deal with karate fighters is they watch the hands. When you're fighting a karate fighter, you want to watch the feet, not the hands. His entry can generally be predictable if you watch how he steps when he jumps forwards. So basically, if he's feinting, it's a different step than if he's not feinting. It's hard to show without an image, but if you do watch him during this fight, you'll start to get it pretty quickly. He definitely relies on sudden speed and surprise rather than like really layering any combination striking and such. After his blitz entries, sometimes he will follow with a spinning elbow, a flying knee, or hook the leg to off-balance his opponent. The flying knee is often to use catch opponents when they are shooting for takedowns during his entries. He tends to try to operate at the longer range rather than applying any pressure, so he will just circle around until you are forced to move forwards into a strike. His footwork patterns definitely get very predictable, as I am basically saying repetitively in slightly different ways at this point. He can be vulnerable to counters if opponents anticipate his entries, though, because when he blitzes, he is in the air, so he cannot move. If you are able to slip and counter, he is getting caught by it. That's kind of how Douglas Lima put him out. Because Lima was predicting his blitzes and just put the calf kick during that, he just got blasted by the calf kick, thrown on balance, and then just knocked out cold after that. Moving on to Patterson. Patterson is a relatively long fighter whose grappling is definitely the primary path of victory, but his striking has evolved significantly. His main goal is to just get the submission on the ground. Like, especially in his early fights, that's all he did. He'll basically use any method possible to get you to the ground, anything from snapping you down in a headlock to using body lock throws or a single leg, double leg, pretty much anything you could think of. His striking has evolved to be a very counter-oriented style. He will just wait for you to make a mistake and then try to throw with full power with like single shots. He will pressure early at times, but then often he'll like use it as a bait to force his opponent to come forwards and then use that to create his grappling opportunities. He generally likes to shoot the takedowns once his opponent overextends on a strike, but if you're not doing that, he will just start to force it. Historically, as soon as the fight gets to the ground, he's basically finished it from there. He hasn't really had any issues fighting the submission, and pretty much everyone who trains with him says his grappling just continuously evolves at a ridiculous rate. Obviously, that's just anecdotal, so take it as you will, but even MVP was talking about that in the past. The knockout wins, it's hard to say what they're going to do to him. Some fighters, it's just like, oh, okay, I have this skill set now that I can use if things are going wrong. Others get a little bit too obsessed with throwing on the feet and try to do it with everyone after that. I don't think that will happen with Patterson, but it is still something to keep an eye on, of course. I am going to pick Patterson by submission here. I'm not that confident, which leads me to believe it's not bias. I do think that because MVP has such a garbage ground game, and the fact that he got caught in the clinch a lot by Cannonier was able to pretty much clinch at will for like 2 out of the 3 rounds. And MVP was moving around a lot, but then he just wasn't able to exit the clinch for a good while. If Patterson gets you in the clinch, he's going to drag you down and finish you from there. And when MVP got taken down by Cannonier even, he just wasn't able to move the entire round. So it does feel like this is a good matchup for Patterson to test himself against a higher level striker and make sure that he can deal with the footwork and actually still shoot a takedown while someone is moving around erratically. There is 100% a chance that MVP is able to just continue dancing around and throw like one strike every 2 minutes and do enough to take a decision without overexposing. But I do think he will slip up, make a mistake at one point, and from that singular mistake, Patterson will end the fight and submit him. So Patterson by submission, I will say round 1, but it honestly can come at any time. All right. We're going to skip this fight. I will explain why another time. So moving on to Evloev versus Murphy. I'm going to put up a poll for that. All right, poll is live. don't care about their outside octagon behavior, who are we to judge? You can have that opinion. I'm personally very keen on judging that. I mean, if you're a terrible person, I'm not going to support your career just because you are whatever inside the octagon. Plus, I don't believe he's particularly entertaining inside the octagon. And he also, again, does stuff inside the octagon I don't like. So even if it was just outside the octagon that was separate, I mean, my opinion would still be the same. All right, starting with 70% for Evloev. Can you give me a hint as to what he did? Oh, people mentioned it above, right? If you type what people said into Google, you'll find it pretty quickly. Why are we skipping it? I'll talk about that next stream, probably. Urkel paid Riley to lose, that'd be funny. Alright, Evloev at 72%. Seems like it's going to stay kind of around here. Alright, gonna end the poll here. Okay. So we will start with, let's see, we'll start with Evloev. So Evloev is obviously a wrestler. On the feet, he's going to try to use his jab at range, then basically try to make chaos in the pocket. He'll throw quick combos to throw you off that are usually just like hook and overhand heavy. It's a very Dagestani style of striking, and I know he isn't technically Dagestani, whatever. He still has that style where they have like very quick pocket combinations that are kind of just used to throw you off and make it easier to shoot on you. We've seen Islam do the same thing many times as well. His takedowns are very dependent on what's available. He'll usually shoot for a double leg, but if he only like gets one leg wrapped around, he'll just switch to a single from there. He's very willing to switch to a body lock. Generally speaking, he does actually want to chain to a body lock and then continue going from there until he's able to maintain position. On the ground, he will throw some ground and pound. Against higher level of competition, it's been mainly pitter-patter shots. He's mainly just holding position. On the feet, his defense is mostly his offense, to be honest. He uses the takedown threat so that you can't really risk opening up in the pocket. But if you do open up in the pocket, he is hittable because of the fact that he is spamming the hooks. His takedown defense is actually surprisingly bad. And I know a lot of people kind of dismiss that by just saying like, okay, Sterling is that good of a wrestler. This is not the only time that's happened in Evloev's career. Like Mike Grundy was tossing around Evloev as well. And it's not that Grundy was bad, but like he's also not someone who you really want just tossing around the octagon. Moving on to Murphy. Murphy is well-rounded, of course, but he does rely mainly on counter-striking and intercepting shots. He is very good at using a whizzer, especially when he is defending takedowns against the fence. His defensive grappling focuses mainly on controlling the wrist first and then standing back up from there. He has pretty good timing on intercepting knees and, of course, elbows, as we saw in the last fight. So those of you who saw my Instagram reel that I put out, that was a very well-timed knee, not just because of the fact that he made a good read, because of how he adjusted so quickly. Being able to stop a kick mid-throw and then pivot to kneeing with the other leg is very quick reaction time, and it's very difficult to even generate the power that he did from that range. So that sequence overall really impressed me, in all honesty. His striking has definitely improved, and it has looked sharper in, I would say, his last two fights. His finishing ability is a little bit limited. Usually he needs a large technique. He's not really just going to put people out with his hands most of the time, but he is very technical. He can get caught by left hooks on the feet. I don't know why this is the case, but it's definitely a weakness for him that I will analyze further if he does get to a title fight at some point. In this fight, he really needs to avoid like the ninja chokes, but in a lot of his last fight, he has gone to ninja chokes to try to like discourage people from wrestling and such. He does have an underrated toolkit. He has a lot of different weapons on the feet that he will use depending on what the fight is. So, for example, he has like spinning back kicks and like spinning back fists even, right? And pretty much anything you can throw with your hands or feet. He will very carefully pick what he needs to and what he should be throwing per fight, though. So he's not going to be like CLD where he's unnecessarily flashy. He'll be as flashy as it is pragmatic. I am going to pick Evloev by decision, which most of you already know. I do believe, though, the finishing upside here is with Murphy. If one of them is going to get a finish, it's probably going to be some large action from Murphy that just walks Evloev onto something and puts him out cold. I do think the biggest issue here is Murphy just can't stuff a takedown for his life. Like, I think he has 50-some takedown defense, and you can't really do that against Evloev unless you're going to find that big shot, and you're probably going to need to find it fairly early as well. If Murphy had good takedown defense, he would honestly be a title contender here. But even if he somehow got through Evloev, Volk is a much better striker than Evloev and probably has a similar-ish level of wrestling. Maybe not quite the same, but he has competent enough wrestling to take Murphy down, let's put it that way. So, Murphy, this is probably the highest he goes, but he is more dangerous than people like to give him credit for, and I could see him making this interesting. He has good scramble, so I do think he is going to get up a lot of the time, but I do think Evloev is going to be able to chain him to the ground again, and we're just going to see a lot of that over the course of 25 minutes. If either one wants a title shot, they're going to need to get a finish or have a war. I think they're going to need a finish, like a dramatic finish. Murphy is very good at punishing aggressive styles. Honestly, it's hard to finish because he has great recovery and sub-defense. I agree, yeah. Murphy via headshot dead. It would be crazy. Evloev and Chimaev losing within the same year will solve all my problems, fair. Imagine if these guys have the greatest fight in the history of the UFC. That would be funny. He's explosive for sure, but Movsar is a great chin, is going to grapple you for 25 minutes hard. I mean, if Murphy lands the knee or the spinning elbow, chin's not going to save you. Well, on the topic of judging character, walking out people's logic on judging... I have no idea what you're trying to say. Chimaev or Sean, how much of a chance does DDP have against Chimaev in a rematch? I'm probably leaning Chimaev decision against Sean, but I would need to rewatch tape. DDP, we need to see how much he can improve his wrestling or not. Movsar is an easier fight for Volk than Lopez. Honestly, Movsar is getting dominated by Volk. Oh yeah, Movsar has no chance against him. Both Evloev and Murphy are overrated in my opinion. Yeah, I kind of agree. Well, okay, I don't think that Murphy's overrated because I don't think many people rate Murphy fairly, in all honesty. I do think Evloev is a bit overrated. Just stylistically, though, despite my opinion on that, I do think Evloev should be Murphy. John Silva is allegedly getting a title shot. Yeah, he's going to be champion soon then. I hate Movsar Evloev, fair, I guess. I have no idea what that even means, Blitz and Blade. Murphy had competitive fights against Washed, Emmett, and Ige. I think he's a bit overrated. The thing is, everyone is saying the same thing, so I don't think he could be overrated when, like, that's the general consensus, you know what I mean? How much of a chance do you give Strickland against Chimaev? I mean, I haven't watched tape for it, but like maybe 40%. Murphy will show how smart he is and win via decision or KO. It's possible. I'll talk about that in the Discord area as well. They're going to make John Silva face off against the loser. Why is he there? I mean, if he's getting a title shot, then he's getting a title shot. Do you think mobs are 48-47's Murphy or 50-45? If I have to guess, I would say probably 49-46. Not trying to undermine your analysis, but what makes you think it was a thought-out knee rather than a kick that landed on the knee like Sterling Moraes? Can you differentiate them? Because it was the other leg. If it was the same leg, I'd agree with you. But he pulled the kick and kneed with his other leg. So that can't be like a coincidence. If this fight goes to decision, John Silva versus Volk will be announced like a day later. Yeah, I agree. I also refuse to believe Murphy hasn't improved his takedown defense. I'm sure he has. I just don't know if he'll be able to improve it enough. I just don't think he really can in this much time. Is John Silva an adaptation genius? I mean, he just has good reads, yeah. I mean, if you want to call that adaptation, sure. Did Sean Woodson ever break into the top 15? Probably not. Did you miss Riley and Aswell Oracle? I did not. I had to skip it. Movsar will win by brutal, mediocre decision. Very possible. Both of them have fake undefeated records, in my opinion. Evloev lost to Lopez and Allen, and Murphy lost to Gabriel Santos. I agree with Evloev losing to Allen for sure. Lopez fight was close, but I did think Evloev barely edged it. The Gabriel Santos one, I felt like that kind of could have gone either way, honestly. I was fine with either decision there. It felt like a bit of a coin flip. Murphy is a very good counter striker. You cannot pressure him blindly, who's landing amazing counters on Pico. Agreed. Yes, guys, I am aware I skipped Aswell versus Riley. Which Jean has more potential, Silva or JPL? I mean, I'm generally higher on John Silva. I like both of them for sure. I do think that, actually, what are their differences in ages? I always forget how old John Silva is for whatever reason. Let's see. Okay, Lobosniani is 3 years younger. That makes sense given where they're at in their careers. Yeah, I'm still a little bit higher on Silva, but I think Lobosniani could be champion. You do a recap of your predictions? Yeah, sure. All right. One more time over. Carolina by decision. Dyer by TKO. Shamrock by submission. Peričić by TKO. Untis by TKO. Pinto by TKO. Wood by decision. Sola by decision. Campbell by decision. What the hell happened to this? Whatever. Duncan by decision. Oh, sorry, by TKO rather. Leroy Duncan by TKO. Iwo Baraniewski by TKO. Patterson by submission. Skip. And Evloev by decision. Alright. I'll hang out for a few minutes for questions, but I'm not going to spend too long on stream today. Pacheos will beat Silva in a 5-rounder. I think his chances are actually worse in a 5-rounder, to be honest, because Silva has ridiculous cardio and he just only gets better. Why'd you skip the Riley fight? I'll explain next stream, probably. How do you think John Silva KOs Volk? Same thing as Ilya, where Volk is backing up and Silva catches him. I think it will be more like how Lopez caught him in the first fight and dropped him. I think it will come off something like that. UFC fighters have better reaction time than esports players. I mean, pure reaction time, probably esports players have slightly better because that's like, the majority of what they need. Do you think Jean is juicing? No, not particularly. I mean, there's nothing about his physique that seems like that, honestly. Any reason you can give for skipping, or will you say nothing until after? I can't say anything until after the. Could you see Lerone offensive wrestle? I don't think it would be smart here because I don't think he's like, yeah, I know that Sterling had success on the ground, but Murphy doesn't have the same grappling level as Sterling, so I wouldn't suggest it. I don't think he'll try it. I think he knows not to. Brendan Allen versus Edmund Shabazian is so stupid. I agree. Do you think Steve Garcia can KO Diego Lopez? I'm leaning Garcia, but his chin concerns me. I think he can, but yeah, I agree with you. It's a weird fight because we don't know if one shot from Garcia or even if you can end it, but we do know that one from Diego can. But I do think Garcia is like the better fighter by a margin. I think yes, because he has great cardio and he's so powerful. He isn't that powerful, though. So one thing that I think people underestimate about Jean Silva, or sorry, maybe overestimate about Jean Silva rather, is that he's just not, like, his precision is extremely good. But he's not like typically a one-shot knockout power guy just from pure, like, he'll hit you anywhere and put you out. Like, he needs to catch you on the chin, and it needs to be very clean for him to have that reaction. Are you doing that recap stream? I might, depending on how the event is, I might do it after, or I might just do it, of course, next, like, Tuesday or something. Was gonna respond to something, but I'm forgetting what it was now. Sorry about that. Did you see the Silva versus Mitchell submission match? If so, what do you think? I just saw the highlights. I think for the most part they were just messing around anyway, so like not much we could take from it realistically. But I mean, glad they settled their stuff. Imagine time traveling and seeing Volk Lopez 30 on a holographic billboard. Valid. Oh, did I complete my thought about Volk Lopez? I may have cut that off. But yeah, the fact that Volk will exit in a straight line after a jab with his chin straight up in the air is something that Silva is definitely just going to punish repetitively. So, especially with, again, how much Silva studies tape, he's just going to see that and be like, okay, if worst comes to worst, I will just hunt that the entire fight until I find it. Silva couldn't drop Allen, who got rocked by Movsar. That's why I think Volk beats him. The reason why Allen got rocked by Movsar, though, is because he blitzed into a strike, and increasing the amount you take of the amount of force you take by that much is pretty hard to deal with, especially because he had his chin in the air when he did it. So I don't think that that's necessarily an indication that like Silva wouldn't be able to knock out Volk or something, to be honest. Who wins, Ankalaev or Roundtree? Probably Ankalaev. Al Dock is a sleeper pick against Bo. Bo looked good against Vieira, but quitting against RDR is an insanely bad look. I'm honestly not sure. I've considered it. It's very winnable for Dawkins. I would not say he's out of it by any means, but I'm definitely gonna have to watch tape before I say too much about it. When's your next stream gonna be? Probably Tuesday, but I can't guarantee yet. Do you think Lopez will try to lean more heavily on grappling in his next fights? I do think he has the best BJJ in the division, but mid-wrestling. Yeah, I just don't think he can set up his grappling, is the thing. I agree with you. It's just, because he has mid-wrestling, it's not viable to focus on the grappling that much. What matchups do you think Whittaker can win or do well in moving to light heavyweight? I mean, if Whittaker fights like Roundtree, he's probably going to win because he could just wrestle. Allen versus Costa prediction. I'd probably lean Allen. Jean or Max? Probably Jean. JDM versus Prates, who wins? That I really need to do tape for. I'm very 50-50 on it. I have a mild lean towards JDM right now, but I'm not confident that would hold up if I watch tape. Ankalaev versus Whittaker. I'm not sure. My first thought is to lean Ankalaev for sure, but I'm not sure because Whittaker is way faster than anyone Ankalaev has fought. And Ankalaev's also just kind of overrated. Nothing Ankalaev has done in his career has aged well. Like, this guy went to a close decision with Rakic. This guy went to a close decision with Krylov. And like, the top people in the division destroy both of them. Steve Garcia or Movsar, Milky or Movsar. I'd probably pick Steve Garcia over Movsar, but I'd probably pick Movsar over Milky. Missed the Patterson MVP pick. Does Patterson sub and make him look easy? I am picking Patterson by sub, but I don't know if it'll be easy. How do you see Khabib winning versus Charles? I think Charles won every grappling exchange in the open versus Islam, who is better BJJ than Khabib. I think that Khabib would win a fairly boring decision. I think that he could get control because Charles is going to be okay settling on his back. And I don't think either will inflict too much damage, and then it's just going to resort to like who had the more control, basically. How would Trócoli versus Medina go? Honestly, that might be a winnable fight for Trócoli because he could probably take down and submit Medina. Whittaker versus Ozdemir. I might lean Ozdemir. Evloev versus DDP prediction, method of victory. I don't know. I've always thought that Evloev is a really bad matchup for Dracus, but I do think Dracus has gotten better since then as well. So right now I think it's like a 50-50. Do you think Khabib is overrated? By the way, Khabib or Ilya? Whether Khabib is overrated or not depends on who you're talking to, because people rate him so radically differently. So, I mean, based on how some fans rate him, yeah, he's definitely overrated. Others, not necessarily so. Khabib or Ilya? I'd probably lean Ilya right now. Elijah Smith's ceiling, I think he could be something. Yeah, I think he'll get into the rankings. I think he'll be like top 7 at one point. I don't know if he'll ever be champion, but I do think he'll go pretty far. Ankalaev versus Whittaker's official. Could that possibly be Whittaker's last fight? This fight seems like a way for Whittaker to easily get a title fight, but if he loses, he ain't losing much. Yeah, if he loses, it might be his last fight. If he wins, I'm assuming he'll keep going. I feel like Khabib gets chinned on the feet against Charles. I mean, Khabib, the way he fought Conor, again, he literally dove across the octagon to get to a single leg and just chain wrestled from there. So I think he would do the same against Oliveira. Like, he was not going to risk trading with him on the feet. How far do you think Bulgari goes? I don't think he has enough time to go too far, to be honest, because he's kind of old and he's just getting started. But I could see him getting like 2 more wins or so. I don't know why, but I could see an early stoppage win for Ulberg against Yuri. Flips him behind the ear, and the ref calls it because Yuri face plants but gets up right after. I get what you mean. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. Charles would pressure Khabib. Khabib's takedowns in the open were terrible. Charles would also crack him on the chin badly. I mean, that would be nice, but obviously I like Charles, and I'm not the biggest fan of Khabib, to say the least. But I do think that Khabib would probably just dive on the single, chain wrestle it to the fence, get it down, then have a really anticlimactic performance. Malik versus Bulgari prediction. I haven't done tape yet, but probably Bulgari. Tyra Pantoja method of victory. Tyra by decision. How do you think Pereira versus Whittaker would have gone at 205? I mean, Pereira would have chinned him with like a jab, to be honest. If he shot like those, Charles would put him in a gilly. I mean, he's obviously going to know that Charles is going to go for the guillotine, though. He's not going to overextend on it. The other reason why it would be hard to guillotine him, you guys are saying if he shot like he did against Conor. He shot very low against Conor as well, though. So he's not going to guillotine him off that. It's just not possible. Alex also started old. Alex didn't start that old, though. Right? Belguri's older than Alex started, unless I'm tripping. Charles has way too good a guillotine for Khabib to just shoot repetitively. That's why Islam didn't shoot at all versus him. Khabib would probably just work against the fence as much as he needed to, and he's just going to shoot very low in the open to get him to the fence. When you have one thing you have to focus on, which would be the guillotine here, you can find ways to fight around it. That's why like guillotine-focused fighters don't find guillotines in this year. It's just not possible. Charles or Islam. I mean, if Charles fights like he fought Max, he has a much better chance in a rematch against Islam. I will say that. Bonfim or Bilal, considering it's a 5-rounder, I do think Bonfim early finish or Bilal decision and wins late rounds. I actually think Bonfim will get like a round 3, round 4 finish because I think he's just going to damage Bilal so badly his body's going to give out. Conor could have easily sprawled, but he tried to intercept with a knee. If Charles sprawls, he can get a front choke. But Charles doesn't really sprawl much. He kind of just goes to his back. MMA Shea narratives out here, I see the Charles glaze. I mean, Charles is fun, so I get why. Like, I understand the love for Charles, to say the least. I would definitely root for him if that fight happens. I just can't lean towards him winning. Thoughts on Yu's performance against Smith before the finish? It was pretty good. I mean, it did look like the wrestling got better. So, I mean, Smith is a bad matchup for him. I could still see Yu getting several more wins. Sorry, it's in the lane. No worries. Glad to have you here, though. Is Bonfim's cardio good? To be honest, I don't even remember. Now that he's not fighting at a crazy pace, it seems fine. Max or Khabib, I think Khabib would have dominated. So here's why I have the controversial thought, because a lot of people assume that Charles would have a better chance against Khabib than Max would, based on what we saw last weekend. I do actually think it's the opposite, though, because Max has always been really bad against body lock takedowns, and that's been a consistent thing throughout his entire career, which is how Charles really punished him here. He would just work to the body lock, pick him up, slam him down. Khabib didn't really do that. He always shot in on the single leg or the double leg, and Max's takedown defense against those is nearly perfect, if not perfect. So Khabib would have been spending a lot more energy than Oliveira was to try to get the takedown. And I think that by rounds 3 or 4, Khabib would have started death gassing there because he didn't have the best cardio. He sprawled against Arman. Did he have a successful sprawl? I honestly don't remember that, but I haven't watched that fight in a moment, to be fair. If Charles focused on defending takedowns instead of playing guard, do you think he would beat Khabib? Well, it's not just a focus. I don't know if he's good enough at it. No, these are legitimately MMA narratives. These are specific arguments he uses. Oh, okay, got you. Do you think Renat deserved to get cut? It's very weird they cut him after round 1 finish and not the robbery against the L. Yeah, no, I didn't think he deserved to get cut. I actually thought he was pretty fun. I didn't think he was the highest level, but like he just bombed strikes and did stuff. It's not like he was like, I know he was technically a wrestler, but it's not like he was a control wrestler, right? He just threw heavy strikes. In round 1, before he dropped the Billy, he sprawled. I don't think he sprawled. Didn't Arman slip off of a kick? And like Oliveira just ended up on top because of that or something weird? Like Armin slipped off a kick and then he kind of tried to turn it into a takedown and just failed. I'd have to rewatch the sequence, but I remember something weird like that happening. Do you think Volk beats Armin? I think Volk TKOs him. Yeah, especially at 145, Volk would kill him. At 155, it's harder to say, but I'd still probably lean Volk. It's also funny when Khabib fans say that Khabib chose to strike with Conor in the third, but in reality he was gassed from the high pace of round 2. Yeah, I mean that's the Khabib play is that is a little bit crazy. Yes, that's exactly what happened round 1. Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad I'm remembering that correctly. Charles hit a cut kick, then Armin shot a takedown and Charles sprawled it. He tried to take the back, but Armin defended. He jumped the guillotine when Armin tried to wrestle up. Yeah, but that's not like a Armin shot a takedown with intent from a good position and Charles sprawled it, right? That's okay. Armin screwed up and then tried to improvise and he was able to defend from there, which obviously is still good, but that's not like he's going to guillotine Khabib type of thing. If Ilya goes up, could Volk be champ at 155? Hmm. Honestly, I think that Oliveira might be a really bad matchup for Volk. I don't know if Volk could handle that pressure from someone who can just put you out with pretty much anything, especially someone like that who doesn't have the best chin at this point, like Volk. Another one is Ala Quinta. They say that Khabib chose to strike with him because he wanted to show his strike, when in reality he couldn't pressure him and get the takedown. Yeah, the limp leg that Quinto was using against Khabib was really effective, and a lot of people just seemingly forget about that. I feel Charles also has a good chance at meeting Khabib from the back, but how is he going to get to the back? Do you like Monster, and if so, what's your favorite flavor? I don't really drink like caffeinated stuff in all honesty. The few times I've tried Monster though, it's been fine. So, I mean, it's probably like the best energy drink I have tried, but I don't really drink them often, so I don't know specific flavors and such. From his back on the ground, I mean. I just can't see it happening, but yeah, I mean, I don't think that Charles has shown the ability to submit someone of that level off his back, and that's no shame on Charles. It's just kind of an impossible thing to do. Tyra or Charles, who wins pound for pound? Yeah, pound for pound, Tyra, for sure. Anyone think Ilya's overrated? Not at this point. I mean, he's gotten pretty damn good. I mean, we just saw, again, what Oliveira did to Holloway, and then we saw what Ilya did to Oliveira. What do you think about Figgy getting a step up after a breathtaking performance against Umar? So stupid. I don't know, man. I don't know why they keep giving like Figgy main events and such. Is so weird. Who do you think skill-wise is the best fighter of all time, excluding resume, of course? Skill-wise, I mean, Mighty Mouse has a solid argument. It's really hard to say, honestly. What is the most entertaining fight the UFC could make right now? The fight I really, really want to see right now is Dyer versus Vettori. But in terms of like, this is going to be an actual war. What's a good one? Honestly, I feel like Petr Yan versus John Silva, as random as that is, would be crazy. The triangle armbar Charles hit on Armin at the end of round 2 was fully locked in and would have submitted him had the round lasted 10 seconds more. I don't think he had an armbar. I do think he had a triangle, yes, but I don't think that was a triangle armbar. Could he have finished that if the round had more time? It's very possible, sure. But I also don't think Armin was at the level of that Khabib was realistically. Ilya is so good it pisses me off that he keeps knocking out my favorite fighters. Valid. GSP, DJ. Yeah, these are both valid things. I think DJ was definitely better than GSP skill for skill, though. DJ 1000%, if valid. Prime DJ versus Van Pantoja, Ira, Ravel, Cop. Ravel is just not in the conversation, to be honest. In all, yeah. Seems like a cool guy, but he's not that level. DJ would beat Cop. Van Pantoja and Tyra are all interesting matchups in different ways. I'm not highly confident either way for all of them. Biggie is still a big name and technically good name for record building. I guess, yeah. Ilya is not really that great. So many holes in his game. If he makes it work though, ultimately, which he has, then I mean, what are you gonna do? People can't exploit it for a reason. Are there things you can exploit? Yes, but if people can't do it, it is what it is. Ilya versus Pereira. I'd probably lean Pereira, I guess. Honestly, not too high on DJ's defensive abilities. He kind of backed away. I mean, he had pretty good footwork when he was moving away, but I get what you mean. Are you going to watch the next Rising card in a few weeks, still trying to see who to realistically bet on? Honestly, depends what the time the Rising card is, because it could definitely be weird times for EST time. Really want to see Armin versus Charles too. Yeah, that'd be nice, yeah. DJ Penn versus the Hawaii Police Department. Oh god. Adaba versus Marvin would end in a nuclear explosion. Valid. Rufy and Jean would be a nightmare to Ilya, because Ilya's weaknesses are kicks, technical power punchers. I don't think of Rufy as much as Jean. I think Jean could give him problems for sure. I think Ilya is just too diverse skill set wise for Rufy, to be honest, though. Fyodor or Jean? Probably Jean, but it would be fun. I hope Guskov sleeps Yaw and then fights Yuri in my dream fight, because both have such weird styles. I honestly don't think Guskov could like make a Yuri fight competitive. It's just he's not that level, realistically. Jan versus Silva would have the slowest round 1 and the best later rounds of all time. Valid. Do you think Sean Park would beat Khabib and Ilya in the same night? He can lift his leg here to calf kicks. He would need to get his fourth kick to check the calf kick. Sorry, his fourth leg to check the calf kick. As a triangle armbar, he got Armin's wrist under his armpit. I'd have to rewatch that then. But whatever the case, like, Khabib is still definitely better than Armin. What's the worst fight on this London card, excluding the 2 WMA fights at the start? Let's see. Worst fight is probably... Honestly, I don't know. I know there will be a boring fight. There always is. But, like, on paper, it's hard for any of them to be boring. So we'll have to find out. Do you think Adriano Moraes could do well in the UFC? I heard he's a free agent. I don't think so, to be honest. He's too old. Van loses to everyone in the top 4. I don't agree with that. Like, let me see who's in the top 4. Top 4. I mean, he already beat Royval, so he definitely doesn't lose to Royval. Otherwise, it's Pantoja, Kopp, and Tyra. I'd pick him against Kopp, and then the Pantoja we didn't get to see, but Pantoja post-injury, I'm picking Van at that point, so. Pantoja bulldozes DJ. It's possible for sure. If Van actually beat Pantoja legitimately, would you still pick Tyra? It would really depend on what we saw in the fight, to be honest. How does Strickland versus Chimaev go? I see Chimaev dominating. I mean, my thought is probably a boring Chimaev decision, but we'll have to see. Ilya versus Morales. I'd probably pick Ilya. John Pork is booked against Rebecki for 328. How do you see his balancing on the third leg affecting the fight? Maybe he can survive to round 2 against Rebecki instead of getting finished in round 1. DJ or Ilya pound for pound? Skill-wise, I'd say DJ, but Ilya's good at making things work even without a variety of skills sometimes. Ngannou or Gaudier at heavyweight? Honestly, I feel like Gaudier is probably like slightly more technical. So as long as he has the power to knock out Ngannou, which I think he does, I'd probably pick him. But that's just how bad heavyweight is. DJ is more versatile, but Ilya is more effective. Yeah, I agree. Rufi versus Jean. Jean for sure. Mirzakhanov sleep Yuri. I mean, his only chance is to do so in round 1, so it's hard to say. It's very possible. But Yuri just has to survive round 1 and he wins. Do you think Volkov versus Alex was the fight they should have made for the interim heavyweight belt? Yeah, I kind of do. Fedor versus Ilya would have been sick. I think Ilya would have got a decision. What do you think? If it happened at 135, I think Ilya would have been so dead that Jan would have probably won. But if it happened at 145, Ilya probably would have knocked out Jan at some point. Walker versus Walker. Honestly, I don't know. That's a tough fight. What do you think is the most overrated prospect right now? For me, it's either Susurkaev or Gaudier. Definitely Susurkaev. He kind of sucks. Skill for skill, no one is better in the UFC than Petr Yan. I don't really agree with that one. I do think he's pretty good, but I don't think he's that good. I got sources from Chunko's team telling me he's been learning how to balance on 3 legs at once while throwing kicks. He might need a 4th to save him here. Khabib is not better than Arman. Khabib's traditional doubles and singles don't even hold a candle to Arman's. Khabib's best takedowns were against the fence. I mean, even Arman of all people said Khabib was someone he could never beat, so I feel like that says a lot. And I know there is some respect factor there, but like, Arman doesn't impress me in a lot of ways that Khabib did. Like, Khabib's chain wrestling was realistically the best in UFC history. Arman's wrestling is good, but it's like, it's nothing insane. Shem versus Abdul just seems like a snooze fest. It's possible. That's definitely a fight that could be a snooze fest. Khabib overrated. His takedown only works against the fence. But if he was able to get you against the fence so consistently, then there's something to that. Where they're past to beating Khabib 100%, right? He wasn't not beatable by any means. But if he's able to chain wrestle you to the fence and then get you down against the fence, I mean, it does what it does enough. It's to be effective. Rebecki fraud checking John Pork would be hilarious. Yeah, it would be. And probably will happen as well. MVP versus Diaz prediction. Thoughts on the MVP card overall? Which Diaz? How does the fight between Alex and Volkov play out? Alex would catch him. Volkov's a little too slow. What's it like in the Discord? I mean, Discord's a very good community at this point. Even like beyond the betting, it's a good community to have. But obviously I'm biased, but I enjoy the people there a lot. Walker or Reyes? I guess I'll lean Walker, but I don't know. I'll look at tape, and I'm not even going to be confident. Does Kevin have potential? Kevin Vachejos or someone else? I mean, if so, it's not even potential at this point. He's already up there. Yuri versus Mirzakhanov. I lean Yuri, but it's hard to say. Tyra John Silva pound for pound 2 wins. That's a tough one because Silva could make a mistake that Tyra could capitalize on. I'd probably lean John Silva right now, but I don't know if like in 2 years that'll be true. I'm fighting in 6 weeks. There's no tape. All I know is he's a southpaw with a boxing heavy style. I'm an orthodox kickboxer. What's a tentative game plan I can use? I mean, that's not much info on your style. Like what are you good at? What are you bad at? How does your length compare to your opponent? Stuff like that. Have you ever listened to the Heavy Hands podcast? Would recommend. I have not, but I'll check it out. Nate Diaz. I think Nate Diaz is too old to beat MVP at this point, realistically. Do you think the version of Islam that Dustin faced would lose to Arman? No, I don't. I still think Islam would beat Arman, or would have beaten Arman as well. Is Prata's pound for pound heaviest hitter? Very possible. I think he meant Mike Perry versus Nate Diaz. Oh, okay, yeah, then I'd probably take Nate Diaz because Mike Perry is not. I don't think he has the power to put out Nate, and I think that Mike Perry will gas against Nate's pressure, but Nate's also old, so it's hard to say for sure. Discord is great. If you're not in it, join it. Just stay away from Renter Wanderer sometimes. I mean, he's a good guy, just a little, something sometimes. Early pick for Zhang versus Menafield. Zhang. When's Chimaev versus Strickland breakdown coming out? We will see. I can't put a date on that yet, but I will update when I can. Patterson is being underrated. He is very well-rounded. Yes, true, he is. Thoughts on boxing fans saying that boxers with only 2 years of MMA training can become UFC champs? I mean, then we would see it happen, right? Like, obviously, it doesn't happen. Boxing is a good base for MMA, I'm not going to say otherwise, but you have to spend a lot of time on ground game, understanding how to deal with kicks, etc. Edmund Shabazian versus Brendan Allen's official. Feel like it's winnable for Edmund. I mean, realistically, as long as Allen doesn't ego and just wrestles, he should win it fairly easily. I'm about 5 inches taller and I'm very kick heavy. Oh, okay. I would say that if you can, get used to throwing the inside calf kicks, because people are just not used to dealing with inside calf kick. And if you can use the inside calf kicks, it will help you set up the head kicks very easily. Top 5 your most hated fighters. Paul Harris and MVP are definitely on there. John Jones might be on there. Otherwise, I'd have to think about it. Why did Buckley open as an underdog against Brady? I mean, because Buckley just couldn't stuff a takedown for his life, so I get that one. But I still do think he has a better chance there, because Brady's takedowns aren't as explosive as Usman's. But I'm not sure if that would be enough for me to pick him. Thank you, sir. We'll work on that. No problem. I just rewatched DDP versus Chimaev. It showed how low level the middleweight division. DDP's balance is so bad. I don't think he will adjust even with a year. It's possible. I mean, he might just not have the wrestling base to ever adjust to that. It's hard to say. Have a good night. I'm gonna head out. Have a good night. That's also... Yeah, we're getting close to the 2-hour mark, so I'll probably end stream as well. My mind is definitely starting to fade here. I appreciate you all coming, though. If you guys are betting on this event, I completely forgot to plug throughout the stream, but it is what it is. If you guys are betting on this card, do consider joining my betting service. The link is in the description here. The algorithm did 250 units in profit last year, and we have plenty of other algorithms, and I'm working on more. So, yeah, only $25 a month. Always feel free to DM me with questions on that as well. Thank you all for coming again. Appreciate you guys being here. Enjoy the events. If I don't do the recap, I will see you guys sometimes next week. And have a good night, everyone. See ya.